I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
It was on this day in 1977, so 49 years ago, that Fleetwood Mac released Dreams from their 11th studio album, Rumors, of course. And that became, if you can believe it, their first and only U.S. #1 hit single. Rumors. It's no rumor. One of the greatest rock and roll albums of all time. And yet it produces just the single #1. Stevie Nicks wrote that song in around 10 minutes on a day when she wasn't required in the main studio. Dreams from Fleetwood Mac's album Rumors, #1 on this day back in 1977. This day being the 24th of March, 2026. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for spending some of your valuable time with us. It is most appreciated. I know that is the most valuable commodity you have, right? Your time. And the fact that you spend it with us here, engaging in the conversation, is most certainly appreciated. Phone lines are always open the minute we begin the show, every morning at 9, 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Doug is already on the phone. I'll get to him in just 1 second. There's a line for you if you've got something on your mind early this morning. 2 things for me. I was the victim of a drive-by, and apparently, thanks to listening to All News Mornings with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas today, I'm also victimized every day by my drive-in. First of all, the drive-by, completely unwarranted. I'm just out there enjoying an afternoon. Okay, I don't know how much I enjoyed it. A little cold. Once you got used to it, though, it was pretty good. Rosie and I were out for our afternoon walk yesterday, minding our own business, just wandering through a little park area, and somebody yells out the window of their vehicle at me, "Leafs suck!" First of all, thank you, I know. Second of all, what kind of abuse is that? Just because I wear my fandom on my sleeve, do I need to be abused like that on the fine streets, the public walkways of the city of Kitchener? Good thing I knew the guy who yelled it at me. Knucklehead that he is. So there's my drive-by insult. Can I charge somebody for that? I mean, where's the line here on what you are allowed by way of insult to hurl out the window of your vehicle at some poor schmuck just out walking his dog? Leafs suck. Again, I know. And as we heard this morning on All News Mornings with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, Ira Needles Boulevard, one of the worst roads in the region of Waterloo, as the CAA opens its annual Worst Roads campaign. Gee, do you want me to go over the history of this ding-dang racetrack again? When we first constructed it, conceived of it, and made it only 2 lanes wide, 1 lane in each direction. And many people said from the get-go, this is not going to work. It's not going to be a wide enough road to handle the volumes of traffic that it's going to have. But no, we went ahead with just 2 lanes, 1 in each direction. And of course, well ahead of schedule, it needed to be widened, didn't it? So now we've got 4 lanes of racetrack along Ira Needles, but none of those lanes is in very good shape, is it? You want to do the pothole slalom? Have we got the road for you? And its name is Ira Needles. Not to mention all of the ding-dang roundabouts. You know how I feel about the roundabouts. I understand them in principle. I get why we've done it. But I really don't like that we have. Ontario has gone roundabout crazy. Every time I'm out in the more rural areas, hey, Listowel, what do you think of your roundabout? Why get these roundabouts all over the ding-dang place? I don't like them. And every day, just to get to work, I have to traverse Ira Needles Boulevard, or as I like to call it, the Ira Needles Racetrack. It must be by design, because I think the radio station, at least management here, likes it when I'm cranky, and just driving to work makes me cranky. Stupid Ira Needles Boulevard. All right, I'm going to get to the phones because Doug is with us early this morning. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Mike. You know, it seems like we're of the same, outside of the drive-by, we seem to be along the same lines when it comes to driving, because I jackwagon today. I'm sure you've seen your share. This one was absolutely stupid. I'm on, I think it's Carindale Boulevard. It goes past the school. The school's 30 kilometers an hour. And, you know, I mean, it's a school day. You'd think maybe people would have enough brains to obey the speed limit a little, you know? Some idiot was so impatient he actually had to pass me. Uh-oh. And then he ran the stop sign to get on to Robert Ferry Drive. I mean, it's just... The mindset to me is absolutely is disgusting. And, yeah, the Leafs suck, but 60 years I've been a fan of that team, and I'm not going to stop now.
Thanks, Doug. I'm with you. I haven't quite been a fan for 60 years, but it was basically out of the womb for me, so I'll call it 55. I'm not stopping either, but I can acknowledge when they suck. And, yeah, the old passed on a residential road, that's happened to me before, too, and it will always make me shake my head. Like, what kind of a hurry are you in? And quite frankly, whose fault is it that you're in such an all-fired hurry? Oh, it's yours, you jackwagon. Sorry, that was a little aggressive, wasn't it? Allow me to take this opportunity to remind you that every day on this show at 10:20, we remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. You see how I said that with a smile on my face? This is how it works. Every day, in and around 10:20, at 10:20-ish, because I'm not always the best at timing, but in and around that time every day, you will hear a story that reminds you that not everybody is a jackwagon. Let's get back to the phones. Tony is with us. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning. As far as that drive-by goes, unfortunately, I think under the letter of the law, if it's true, it's not a hate crime.
Well played, sir. Well played.
So, I mean, I as a diehard Leaf fan, unfortunately, they're right. They do suck. So, oh well, we got to suck it up, Buttercup.
You know what, Tony? I'm with you, buddy. Hey, listen, I'm glad you called today. As weird as this sounds, but I was thinking about you while I was walking Rosie yesterday. I thought it's been a while since I've heard from Tony, so I'm glad to hear from you today.
All right. Well, I'll have to call back another day.
All right. I'll look forward to it. Have a good
one, buddy.
You too. Yep. Bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye. There you go. If it's true, it can't possibly be a crime, right? So, Craig, I'm going to call you out. You know who you are. You're going to get away with this one because what you yelled out your window, while ill-spirited on your part, was not untrue. The Leafs do suck. Bob is with us early this morning on the show. Good morning, Robert.
Hi.
Yeah, so I got a funny story about kind of people passing on residential roads. So we live on a quiet road, and somebody went to do this, and I couldn't believe it. I had my kids in the car. There's people biking at the side of the road, and this person goes to pass us, and, there's one lane each way. So I, driving an AMG, I just stepped on the gas and looked at the guy beside me, and then all of a sudden he realized that he was in the wrong lane going up a hill, and all of a sudden his kind of maneuver there didn't work out so well for him. So it was kind of a funny moment. But I got a question. I wanted to ask, when are we starting to see some trees pop up from these tubes that are all over Woolwich? It's been 2-3 years now. I don't see any trees coming up. Thanks.
Okay, Bob, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I remember when those tubes, to use Bob's words, first started appearing, and it was a wee bit of a mystery that we put it out there for you to help solve, and you did. This was part of a major tree planting initiative along Highway 85 as you're headed towards St. Jacobs and Elmira. And the answer to your question, Bob, is I'm not sure. It is my sense that when we do such a mass planting, that not every sapling takes, not every tree takes, but I will pay more attention when I'm back out that way and I'm traveling along and let's see. I mean, listen, you plant a tree today and you get shade in 20 years, right? So it takes a little while for things to really start showing up, but I'll keep my eyes on it too, because I believe, I'm going off the top of my head now, but I think the number was 20,000. Was that the number of trees that Woolwich had said it was going to aggressively plant? So we'll watch for those 20,000 trees, because you know what? That's a lot of shade. That's a lot of shade coming our way.
1, 2.
How about your Farwell Show 5? We'll go beyond 2 this Tuesday morning, starting at number 1. Buying new homes in Cambridge and Waterloo is getting more expensive. Waterloo has voted to increase development charges on new homes by up to 22%, adding almost $3,000 to the cost of buying a new house. In Cambridge, council is considering a 14% increase that would add almost $6,000 to the cost of a new home in the city. Most of that development charge increase would be directed to the new Cambridge Sportsplex. Number 2, Waterloo Council also approving an official plan and zoning amendment to allow additional development at the existing commercial plaza on the southwest corner of Herb Street West and Ira Needles Boulevard. So this would be across from the Canadian Tire Shoppers part on our side, if you will, where our studios are on the boardwalk, our side of Ira Needles. But they're going to be allowing more development in there. This amendment to the official plan and zoning will enable the site to expand beyond its existing commercial plaza to include a new commercial block, a new municipal road, a new multi-use path, and a relocated new stormwater management facility. I do believe there's also another roundabout included in all of this, because who doesn't need another roundabout? Not me for sure. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the Ontario Hockey League thinks it's in the perfect place right now to expand. And League Commissioner Brian Crawford was in Chatham last night making his pitch. Chatham-Kent Mayor Darren Caniff thinks it's a great opportunity.
This represents a very exciting opportunity for Chatham-Kent. The potential to bring OHL hockey to our community is something that will have meaningful impacts, not just in terms of sport and entertainment, but also for local economic activity, community pride, and regional profile.
Ultimately, we'd like to add a few teams to our league. These are projects that are really managed in years, not months. So as we think about this, 3 to 5 to 8 years is kind of the time frame that some of these could take. If you look at the time you start, let's say today, and thinking about an arena to where a shovel goes into the ground to where the doors open, is multiple years to get to that final spot.
That is League Commissioner Brian Crawford, along with Chatham-Kent Mayor Darren Caniff, talking about the possibility of an OHL team in Chatham. And where else might there be an OHL team? Because the commissioner, Brian Crawford, thinks the league is in a good place to start adding to its current 20-team roster. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, something I should have mentioned yesterday. I was remiss in not doing so. Please forgive me for that and allow me to remind you that it was a Montreal versus Montreal gold medal game in the U Sports Women's Hockey Championship in Elmira this past weekend. Our University of Waterloo Warriors were the host team. Unfortunately, they were knocked out early. The University of Guelph Griffins also in competition, and a great job done by every volunteer. We really rally behind events like this. It was a well-run event yet again, but the final had the University of Montreal taking on Concordia, and it was the U of Montreal Carabins beating the Concordia Stingers 5-2 in the final. This was the 3rd consecutive Quebec win in the Women's Hockey Championship and the 4th Quebec victory in the last 5 seasons. What's in the water over there in La Belle Provence when it comes to women's varsity hockey? So congratulations to the Montreal Carabins for winning 5-2 in that final. And one more sporting note. How about Ava Murphy of Kitchener? Her number 2 seed Wisconsin Badgers beat the top-seeded team Ohio State 3-2 on Sunday at the Frozen Four, winning their 2nd consecutive national championship and their 3rd in the last 4 years. I remember having Ava Murphy in this studio talking about her hockey success, and off she goes to play with Wisconsin in the NCAA, and back-to-back now, Frozen Four champion is the young woman from Kitchener. Way to go. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. I hope you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had on a lovely young woman from Wilfrid Laurier University who was the leader of the motion ball program at WLU. Motion ball is an inclusive sport that really allows people with varied abilities to participate. And Maya Robinson is the leader of this motion ball group at Laurier and had joined our show to talk about their upcoming Marathon of Sport, which raises money for Special Olympics Canada. And they had that Marathon of Sport this past weekend on Saturday. More than 100 Laurier students and 21 Special Olympic athletes came together and raised more than $20,000 for the Special Olympics Canada Foundation. Way to go, one and all, led by Maya Robinson over at WLU.
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
And that is your...
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
Farwell Show 5. That's your math on this Tuesday morning. We're going to take a break. Come back with your morning wake-up call. I wonder what you think of this fella who really did give a wake-up call to someone in his community. He's a farmer, and anyone who lives in a rural area or who farms the fields in and around Waterloo region has probably experienced this, because not to go back too deep into the people are jackwagons hole here, but people can be jackwagons. And if you live out in a rural area, you will often find things that people just dump on the side of the road. It might be on the side of the road right outside your place. It might be in a field that you maintain. And it turns out this fella had enough, and when he went to clean up the mess that somebody had left behind, sometimes it's in bags, sometimes it's in boxes, sometimes it's just junk that got thrown there, and some of what got thrown there still had the address of the thrower on some of the material that was deposited. So he got in his tractor and he delivered it back to their home.
Hi, Rochelle? No, Rochelle's not home right now. Your name's on the boxes and everything. It was all dumped in my field. I'm a farmer. So I'm just kind of wondering, is that your stuffed animal on there? Yeah, it is your stuffed animal? Okay, that's all I want to know. You can ask your mom to go pick the stuff out of my field, okay? Or it's all going to be in your driveway. You dumped it in my field on Wallace Road in my cornfield. So I just wanted to know that, okay? That's all your junk.
That's all your junk. You dumped it in my cornfield, so I'm bringing it back to your driveway. Do you support the farmer in this effort here? Would you do something like this if the addresses were left on some of the junk that was dumped in your field? Just take it right back. Return to sender. Let me know your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. The internet really seems to love the Snyder family of Caledon, owners of Forest Lawn Farms dating back to the 1940s. They posted on social media a photo of some junk. It's just general debris, including a stuffed animal that had been dropped in their cornfield along the side of the road. And so the farmer filmed himself using his tractor to pick it all up. And because some of what was dropped in the field at the side of the road still had the address of apparently the person who dumped it there, he put it up in the tractor and took it right back to that address down the road in Brampton. Would you like this in the driveway, or where would you like it dumped? And he's got some country music blaring over the speakers of his radio in the cab of the tractor as he returns the junk to sender. According to some of the comments on the Snyder family's It's Forest Lawn Farms, again, is the name of the farm in Caledon. According to some of the comments, not all heroes wear capes. We need more of this energy in 2026. And a real gentleman goes out of his way to make sure he returns others' things. The general consensus seems to be on Team Farmer in this case. And I can certainly get behind this. And when you have the time to do it, obviously, those fields are going to be worked pretty soon and grow some of that food that goes farm to table. This gives farm to table a whole different definition, doesn't it? You dump your stuff on my property, and I am going to pick it up and deliver it directly back from whence it came. So, I mean, maybe just a word to the wise here for anyone inclined to do some illegal dumping at the side of the road. Don't dump something with your address on it. And really, that's being too generous in all of this. This is not the sort of thing that you should do ever, period. Can we just please stop? Because we know this has been going on basically since time immemorial. And the reminder here, I think the important takeaway from this story in particular is that when you are engaging in behavior like this, dumping on the side of a road somewhere, remember that very likely it is attached to someone's property. In this case, it was someone's property in Caledon. And I don't know why you'd put your junk there. If you don't want your junk in your house, dump it on your own property. Angela is with us on the phone this morning. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning. I heard this and I did have a little chuckle about it, but it is so true. We are amongst farmers, so we are on Holman Road, so Huron and Holman area.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced this because we've only moved to the farming community in the last 5 years, but the amount of bags, boxes, broken plates, and just all kinds of stuff that gets left is really quite unbelievable, and of course cats as well. And so when I heard this, I was like, yes, yes, yes. I am pro-farmer. I think that is great that he found the address and returned it, dumped it on, just returned it and dumped it right on their driveway and said, yes, return to sender. I love it because it is it is a shame, and it's really difficult. And the group, we all try to get together to clean up, but we shouldn't really have to pick up other people's junk. So yay for the farmer.
Thanks, Angela. Appreciate the call. Good to hear from you today. Yay for the farmer. And that's a little bit of karma coming back pretty quick, isn't it? An update from the 570 News Center is coming up. And then let's talk to a former school board trustee who resigned his position. Why did he do that? And what does he think school boards need? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We have returned to parliamentary business at Queen's Park, the business of our provincial government. And we do so mere months ahead of a municipal election. That's got impacts here in the region of Waterloo, of course, because we are a two-tier regional municipality. And there has been talk about eliminating that upper tier, no longer having elected regional councillors, nor an elected regional chair. There have been some hints at that, some signals that we might head in that direction, but nothing confirmed yet. And we're about 5 weeks away from people being allowed to put their names forward. May the 1st, that opportunity opens up. If you'd like to run in the municipal election, so if you're thinking of being a regional councillor or a regional chair, what do you do until we learn from the provincial government what it intends to do? Another area that we are unsure of the future is in our elected school board trustees. The province has taken over 8 different school boards across the province, and there have been hints that boards of trustees will also be eliminated, but we do not know for sure. Something that we do know for sure, though, is that Bruce Whitaker used to be a trustee with the Avon-Maitland District School Board out of Stratford and no longer is. Bruce joins our show this morning for a conversation. Bruce, good morning.
Good morning to you.
And along with Bruce, the now former school board trustee with Avon-Maitland, is Joseph Cohen, who is currently still a trustee with the Avon-Maitland District Board. Joseph, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Bruce, if I could start with you, why did you make the decision to resign from your role as a school board trustee?
I guess I'd like to sort of start with why I got involved as a trustee, and that sort of answers your question. I was thrilled to participate in education. I've always been in business, and I had one son still in the system, and I thought this would be a great payback for educating my 3 sons. And I also saw a lot of opportunities to advance education. And I was really excited as a former corporate consultant as well to get involved in advancing education. And when I got in, of course, it was a much different environment that I was expecting. So it was really a stifling environment, and it wasn't conducive to improvements and seizing opportunities. And you would think that education system would be the opposite. A place, I was thinking it would be a place of nurturing and exploring, but it was the opposite. It was very much a position of gatekeeping and maintaining the status quo rather than looking at ways of doing things better. So that was very discouraging to me, and I got to the point where I wasn't being productive and I wasn't being constructive. So I thought that there's got to be a different way to contribute to education.
Joseph, as someone who is still in that system, serving as a school board trustee, do you find it to be a stifling position?
Well, let me start off by telling you that I'm going to be sharing with you my personal opinion. I don't speak on behalf of my board or other trustees. I'm speaking from my personal experience. But, I have generally some concerns about how school board trustees are operated across Ontario. I don't think they don't encourage diversity of ideas.
Sorry, Joseph, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're having a really rough time with your connection. Are you able to pick up the handset by chance? Because it's not coming through very clear.
Okay, sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Much better.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
what I started to say is that these are my personal opinions I'm sharing with you today. I don't speak on behalf of my board or the other trustees at my board, but these are based on my experiences. And I agree with Bruce. I don't think that boards across Ontario that I've witnessed embrace diversity of ideas. I find that generally they're not interested in hearing other people's point of view. I think they're more interested in cohesion, and I think Bruce makes a very good point. It's a surprising point too, because you think that in a place where you're supposed to foster education, that you would model embracing people with different ideas, but that's not the way it is.
Bruce, from your perspective, as somebody who decided to step outside the role of trustee and contribute in other ways, what do you think of the province's signals that they may eliminate these boards of trustees? Is there still a role for them today?
Well, I think the government has a great opportunity, and I think they need to seize on it, and that's for change. My belief is that we need voices from communities, and the issue is, I don't particularly blame the trustees, because the trustees are really given, I don't know if you're aware, but there's really two different things that the trustees are supposed to do. Number one is to hire the director of education, and the second one is to oversee a budget that typically is around $1 billion. So you can imagine that most of these trustees do not have any experience in hiring an executive and have absolutely no experience on managing, overseeing a budget of $1 billion. So they're put into a fairly awkward situation, which is unfortunate. Are we attracting the sort of people that are qualified to do the job? Is number one. And number two is, are we giving people, these trustees, the opportunity to advance the education system? And I guess I would be a little bit concerned the way that the government has organized, a number, over 100 years ago, the trustees came, the system came into power, is that they're not really empowering them to do great things within the education system. They say they're essentially gatekeepers. So I think it's unfortunate. So I think there's another way that we can address the trustees and continue to have a voice from our communities. What would that other way be? Any suggestions? I think the first thing is to really agree on a mandate. And I'm just trying to find, there's a quote from a thought leader, and it's essentially more or less that he believes that the education system should be about preparing our children for the future environment and allowing them to be successful in that environment. I think, number one, we have to agree with a mandate of what we need to be doing within the education system so that the trustees or whoever the people are that are contributing from the communities are aware of that and able to participate in the improvement of the education system. So I think that's really the key, is that we want to not only provide that environment, but I think we also want to attract the right sort of people to run, if there is a run, or maybe it's an application process. And the way it's set up now is that trustees get paid under $25,000. It's an environment where they're not really contributing to the advancement of the system, as I've said. So who are you really attracting to run? And I think that in the last election, over 30% of the races were uncontested. So we're having people that don't even have to run. And a lot of times, the people that are most qualified are the ones that really don't want to run in an election. So I think there is a way forward.
Joseph, what is it, given this environment, that keeps you going as a trustee?
Well, I'm a parent of 8 children. When I ran for trustee, I had 7 children in the system, and I wanted to contribute to that, my community, help make things better. So I think that's what kept me on. But I agree with Bruce. I think there should be changes. I think there's definitely got to be a better way to this. There's a lot of things about this whole conversation that alarm me. I was going to say across Ontario now, many boards are actively working to prevent or stop the Minister of Education from eliminating trustees. And, I worry about whether those actions are appropriate. And I also, worry whether they've given any thought to how continuing the system is going to help make education better. As trustees, we're accountable to our constituents, but we're also we're accountable to the province. We have to implement provincial policy. But I find the approach many boards across Ontario are taking now on this issue about the elimination of trustees is that the province should be accountable to the trustees. And as I said, that's not the way the system is now. We're supposed to be accountable to the province. So that's to me, I think this focus is taking us away from what our focus should be, which is on the public interest, not self-interest.
What might be the biggest challenges, Joseph, that you face as a trustee today?
The biggest. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, there's many challenges. I got to say, generally speaking, personally, I'm a little put off. I'm a little put off by these campaigns of these school boards. They're trying to stop the elimination of the roll. They're claiming they're advocating for democracy. That's their primary focus. But I have found a lot of cases where they don't advocate for democracy. They're not interested in divergent opinions. Across Ontario, I've known people who have been censored by boards for what I believe only because they have different opinions. They've weaponized the whole code of conduct system. So it's hard for me to sit there and feel that I can comfortably share my viewpoints, without that being an issue.
And I think, Mike, the both of us got involved because we really wanted to focus in on the students and the teachers and the environment, and we're so focused on process. Very rarely does student come up in our meetings. And I think that we've got to get back to students and teachers and creating an environment that is positive and productive and that moves the education system forward. And the one thing I'd like to say, there's been a lot of talk about the art in Italy and the boxes in the sports stadiums, but it's much more than that. I think we have to look at what our mandate is with the education system. How do we contribute, and how do we attract the right sort of people to be in those positions to really contribute to a better system that's focused on student performance? And once we do that, I think we'll be in a good place. But and this is the opportunity. The government has the opportunity. So when you say at the beginning, you said, should we eliminate trustees? I think we have to look at a different role, and we have to look at a different position description.
It is an important conversation, and I appreciate the time that both of you gentlemen have given us this morning to further that conversation. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Joseph Cohen and Bruce Whitaker joining us on the show this morning. Bruce is a former public school board trustee with the Avon-Maitland board in Stratford. He resigned because he found the position of school board trustee a stifling one. Joseph remains on that Avon-Maitland district school board in Stratford, but feels as though there is too great an emphasis on process. And codes of conduct have been weaponized, and groupthink is far more desirable than a divergence of opinion and a robust conversation, discussion, debate even. That's Stratford, 40 or so minutes west of the region of Waterloo. And it sounds identical to what we have going on in this region at this moment. Weaponized codes of conduct. The Catholic Board has spent almost 200% more of its budgeted allotment for court and legal fees because they're fighting with one another, to the point that one trustee has already won a $20,000 award and will likely be awarded more because the code of conduct was weaponized against her. The public board, and I was thinking of this as Bruce Whitaker talked about the basic functions of the board of trustees, which is to manage a massive budget and to hire a director of education. I think we can all see how that's gone at the public board, haven't we? They have failed miserably on both counts, pure and simple. And that's why I have said on so many occasions, when it comes to our public school trustees, none of them deserves a vote again in the upcoming municipal election. Not a single one. They completely bungled the hiring and firing, quite frankly, of the former director of education at a cost of untold amounts to us as the taxpayers. And managing the budget, let's look at all of the legal costs they have gotten themselves wrapped up in. We could just go on and on, fighting with one another. It needs to be, am I open to an overhaul? I'd like to be a little more open to an overhaul, but I think these boards of trustees have been digging their own graves for generations now, terms upon terms upon terms. I think they have been digging their own political graves. I don't know that maybe we go scorched earth and completely revamp the system. Maybe. I'm less inclined to be that generous based on what we have seen from our school boards of late. But always happy to get your thoughts, of course. Do we eliminate boards of trustees? Do we revamp them and give them a clearer mandate, maybe even make the positions full-time? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Believes that the education system should be about preparing our children for the future environment and allowing them to be successful in that environment. I think, number one, we have to agree with a mandate of what we need to be doing within the education system so that the trustees or whoever the people are that are contributing from the community are aware of that and able to participate in the improvement of the education system.
Bruce Whitaker is a former public school board trustee with the Avon-Maitland District School Board in Stratford. He grew so frustrated with how the system was not working and not serving students in his mind that he resigned. Now he would like to see an overhaul as opposed to an elimination of boards of trustees. We were also joined by Joseph Cohen, who remains on the Avon-Maitland District School Board in Stratford, and also expressed his frustrations with the feeling that his different opinions are unwelcome and that the code of conduct has been weaponized against trustees. These are familiar concerns that have been raised right here in the region of Waterloo. And we talked at some length last week on the show about Ontario Premier Doug Ford kind of flooding the zone as we headed back to work at Queen's Park this week. Let's talk about bringing your own booze to summer festivals this year. Let's talk about opening up the HOV lanes to single occupant vehicles at certain hours of the day. Let's talk about a whole bunch of different things that do not include the freedom of information changes that Ontario Premier Doug Ford took a lot of heat for yesterday when he was back on the floor for question period. And let's not talk about what has to come very soon from this provincial government. If the rumblings are to be believed and that there is change afoot when it comes to elected boards of trustees for school boards in this province and to two-tier municipal governance structures like we have here in the region, you don't have a lot of time, Mr. Ford, to begin moving forward on these fairly significant changes. Again, the period for declaring one's intention to seek a seat on a municipal council or a school board, May the 1st. We're only about 5 weeks away. So did the zone get flooded so we wouldn't think about this? Big changes could be afoot, but the Premier is running out of time to implement them. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, a heritage conservation district proposed for the Galt area of Cambridge and proposed even to expand beyond its current boundary continues to make headlines in the city. It will be discussed from a number of angles at the meeting of Cambridge Council tonight. Council will hear an economic impact analysis and consultation report looking at what the Heritage Conservation District brings to the city. They will also consider a motion from Ward 1's Helen Schwery asking that staff be directed to develop and report back on a policy that confirms notification and consultation with property owners when a property is being considered for a heritage designation. And there are several delegations tonight objecting to the heritage designation process and asking that their properties not be designated. There has also been the formation of what's called the Core or the Cambridge Core Planning Advisory Committee. And the lead behind that is longtime architect and Cambridge resident Patrick Simmons, who joins us on the show this morning. Patrick, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you very much for making the time and sharing some of your expertise with us, because it is deep, not just as an architect, but as a resident of the city. What concerns do you have with the heritage plan and its impact on the core of Galt?
Well, thank you for asking the question. Planning is one of the most important functions of municipal government. It shapes the shape of our community for generations to come. It needs to be done well, or our cities become unlivable, uncomfortable, and unsustainable. But it's poorly understood by many people. They don't know if the planning department is doing a good job or not until they see their city heading in the right or wrong direction. And it's particularly true in the downtown area. The downtown's the heart, face, and the soul of the city. And often cities put together planning advisory committees made up of stakeholders, public, residents, so that there's a dialogue between council, planning department, and residents. There's a give and take. People are told, what's happening through members of their community that sit on this council, and feedback can be sent back to staff and councilors. Cambridge, for some reason, does not have one of these advisory bodies. And for the past few years, I and others began to notice the planning department seemed to be struggling to put policies in place to make downtown Cambridge a better place, chiefly attracting, some new residents and businesses and investment, while much of Southern Ontario began to see revitalized downtowns. Cambridge seemed to be bypassed by this trend. And we were wondering, what was going on. I've sat on the board of the BIA in downtown Cambridge for years. And after a bit of a bump, after the Gaslight District was built 4 years ago, things seemed to be coming to a grinding halt. So we got together and said, okay, let's try to figure this out as a committee. And the catalyst for that was this Heritage Conservation District. And we felt it was an overreach. Instead of focusing in on the really important heritage areas of our downtown, and we have a great downtown. We have wonderful heritage buildings. We all love that. And over the last few years, we've seen some great developments downtown with those heritage properties. Developers seem to value those as well, work with them and create some great work. So, but we said, okay, Heritage Conservation District, I feel a bit of an outdated, bit of a blunt tool to make for a great downtown. It should be used very sparingly in particular areas where there's a great deal of heritage to be conserved. It shouldn't be a blanket policy over the whole of downtown because it's another significant layer of regulation. And we haven't had any developers interested in building housing downtown for years. And I'm not talking about glass skyscrapers and concrete high rises. I'm just talking about sensible infill housing in the core area. We have to attract these people into the core area. And it's a difficult place to develop as it is. We've got the floodplain, we've got bedrock just beneath the surface. And we've had, frankly, a council and planning department that has been not welcoming to the development community and to investors, business owners who want to come downtown. It's been hard to get people to come to downtown Cambridge. This is just going to be another layer of obstruction. And maybe it's a good thing to do for a very small area in downtown. We already have a little bit of a heritage conservation district on the south side of Lower Main Street. Maybe take it across the street, another block or so to the north and south. But let's be judicious about it rather than taking the whole downtown and saying nobody can do anything without working with heritage planners. And that's not an easy process. So that's really our concern here, Mike.
You mentioned, Patrick, some examples of what has been done while respecting existing heritage. Gaslight was, I think, one of those examples. What other ones have you seen?
Well, Main Street has really been the focus of a lot of work over the last, I'm going to say, 5 years. A property owner, Terry Polyak of Milestone Marketing, bought a good chunk of Lower Main Street and has been slowly working to renovate those buildings. And he's done a great job. And he has had no intention of tearing down buildings. He realizes the value of heritage. Same with Omar Kaki. He bought much of the waterfront from Main Street to the Carnegie Library, and has done a great job again of building with heritage, not against it. City Hall as well is a great example of working within that quadrant. The Design Exchange, the old post office on the waterfront, again, great modern architecture combined with heritage buildings. Fantastic. Cambridge Mill, a wonderful long-time business and a great restaurant, by the way. Also added to their building very thoughtfully, very sensitively. Nobody wants to tear down these old buildings. They want to work with them because they know the value.
So if we are to get that critical mass of people into the downtown, Patrick, are we going to need 20 and 30-story skyscrapers to do it?
No, I don't think so. I think we can do that kind of develop on the very periphery if we make that decision. And I think Cambridge has lacked what we call a secondary plan that guides development in the core area for a very long time, which is not good. We should have done a secondary plan guiding development with citizen input 10 years ago. And instead of that, we've proceeded with a heritage conservation plan. It's backwards. We need a plan guiding downtown development with citizen input, saying, okay, if we want to do 20-story buildings, maybe we do, maybe we don't. We don't really know because citizens haven't been given that input. Where do we want them? Probably not in the core area, at least not downtown. I don't think that's going to happen anyway. The zoning doesn't exist for that now, and I doubt that will change. But on the very periphery of downtown, like the Gaslight, I don't think citizens would have a problem with that.
What do you see in the Heritage Conservation District proposal that would hold back the kind of downtown that you envision for Cambridge?
Well, it's really people making the choice to renovate, rebuild, invest in their properties. It's hard enough to build downtown, like I said. It's hard enough to attract people to assemble, 2-3 properties so they can build a small, sensitive infill apartment building. There were more people living in downtown Cambridge 100 years ago than there are now. That's not right. We need people downtown to shop, to dine, to visit, and that's not happening, and that's not right.
Why the Cambridge Core Planning Advisory Committee? Because this would be ad hoc, right? This is not a city committee by any stretch.
Very much ad hoc, and we really don't want to be doing this. I hope in the coming months the city will realize the value of a planning advisory committee and say, thank you, fellas. We're going to create one of these ourselves, and you've done a great job introducing the concept to us. We'll take it from here. I would be all for that. I don't really want to spend my retirement doing this. The other fact is, if the planning function was happening effectively and we knew it was happening effectively, we don't know that, we wouldn't be doing this. We just feel like, hey, we're not getting any news about what's going on downtown other than this heritage plant conservation district. We really need to know more. And it's not just the planning function that we're worried about at City Hall, it's the communication function.
Patrick, I appreciate the work that you're doing in this regard and the time you've given us on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Patrick Simmons is a longtime architect and a longtime resident of Cambridge who has formed the Cambridge Core Planning Advisory Committee, talking about the Heritage Conservation District plans for the Galt core area of Cambridge, plans to even expand the boundaries of that conservation district, and the concerns that Patrick, among others, we had Terry Poliak. You heard Patrick make reference to Terry. He was on the show last week, and we have to recognize that there is a vested interest here on the part of somebody like Terry Poliak, who has invested in to the downtown of Cambridge with hopes of realizing a return on that investment. And the city's, of course, desire to preserve these beautiful heritage features and how those features themselves can be drivers of tourism, because what we end up with is an area that is desirable to people visiting a particular district. I do find myself, though, on the side of those who think or believe that getting more people into the core is a critical component of ensuring its future. And I know Cambridge isn't Kitchener, nor is it Waterloo. And I will also tell you that personally, I find downtown Kitchener lately a little bit on the stifling side, if I'm just being perfectly honest with you, as somebody who grew up in this town and has watched it grow around me. And I think in some cases, I find myself having not paid enough attention until all of a sudden I'm downtown and I'm looking around going, well, how did all of this come to pass? And I find it a little bit claustrophobic, certainly compared to the downtown that I knew as a kid. But this is the critical mass of people that downtowns need. Look at all the big towers that Waterloo built and is building. The former, the atrium site right by Waterloo Public Square is going to get a couple of towers now as well. They're going into Waterloo. They're going into Cambridge or into Kitchener. Cambridge seems a little more reluctant. And again, there are vested interests at play here, and there are arguments to be made for the need for or the importance of heritage conservation. At the same time, as I said, I find myself pretty open to the idea I think I fall into that category of person who believes it is people that make the downtown thrive. And if you can't find places for people, then it's going to be very difficult to have that vibrant downtown. You can't just invite them down a couple of times a year over the summer when you start to close streets down for festivals and whatnot. That's my 2 cents on it. Anyway, but this is a struggle, and I think it's going to take Cambridge a little bit to get to where it wants to be when it comes to this Heritage Conservation District. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. As I mentioned at the outset of that last conversation, Cambridge Council will consider from a variety of angles its Heritage Conservation District at its meeting tonight. There will be a report presented. Council has already seen it and I'm sure digested it. But looking at the economic impact of the Heritage Conservation District, there are also a number of delegations asking to be exempted from the heritage designation, and a motion being brought forward by Councillor Helen Schwery asking that there be a process in place so that property owners are aware and get notification and consultation when their property is being considered for a heritage designation. Councillor Adam Cooper, who represents Ward 6, has shared with us that really what's at the heart of the Conservation District decision is what he believes to be a simple question. Do we want Cambridge to grow responsibly and maintain its beauty and charm, or do we want to lose its identity in a mass of dense towers? The proposed downtown core Heritage Conservation District, according to a letter from Councillor Adam Cooper, is about ensuring that as Cambridge grows, it does so in a way that respects and enhances these defining elements. It does not stop development. It does not lock the core in time. What it does do is set clear expectations so that new buildings contribute to the character of our city rather than erase it. It is right around that time of the show where I like to provide you with your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon. And I had to do very little work for this. All I had to do was answer a phone call yesterday during our rant or rave hour from noon until 1, because Karen reminded us that in this region, right here at home, we take care of each other.
I want it to be a rave because there's so much negativity these days. So I just wanted to call out that we did have some sad news in my community, Ayr, where we recently had a fire downtown. It's a pretty sad historic building, but fortunately, all the folks that were included in that fire are safe and sound. Our little theater in Ayr is called the Ayr Community Theater, and they have a production coming up this week, and I believe they still have tickets available. And they are taking $3 from each ticket, and that money will go back to the victims of the fire. So I just wanted to call out that our community is really helping to support those in need, especially those that were impacted by the fire. And if you love Little Theater, this one's called Queen Millie of Galt, and basically it's some humor around an unexpected love story, and it looks like it's going to be a good production. It's March 25th to 29th. And people can get tickets at aircommunitytheater.com. And if you're interested, feel free to go onto the link, because money is going back to our community, back to those that really need help with the fire. And I just think it's an awesome thing that the community, which has a very tiny little budget of theater, is taking some proceeds and giving it back.
aircommunitytheater.com. The production of Queen Millie of Galt opens Wednesday, runs through Sunday. That's the 25th to the 29th. And you're donating $3 per ticket back to those folks who were displaced by the fire downtown a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. I do not have a direct connection. I have gone to the theater and I enjoy it. I just wanted to bring this forward because I think it's a great thing that they are doing to help out our community and those who have been impacted by the fire. So I just thought it's a great story. It's a good rave, and it's a good Monday for those that might not have something to do this week to get out to the theater.
Rant or rave, something we do every Monday from noon until 1. You rant because you're upset about things. You rave because you're not. And Karen called yesterday to rave about the Air Community Theatre. aircommunitytheatre.com. They're putting on a production that opens tomorrow, Queen Millie of Galt. It runs through Sunday, and $3 from every ticket sold is going to support those folks who were displaced and impacted by that fire in downtown Ayr a few weeks ago. So you see, not even in this region is everybody a jackwagon. Even though sometimes you're driving to work and they really frustrate you and you think, oh, everybody's a jackwagon around here. Not the case. And Karen reminded us of that when she made a call yesterday to rant or rave. Remember, I share a story like this every day around 10:20. I'm happy to hear from you about somebody who you know that is not a jackwagon. Drop me an email, mike@570news.com. We'll make sure to share that story. A daily reminder that there is good in the world, and a lot of it is happening right here at home. Speaking of doing good, I don't know what to say about these next guests that are coming in, but you'll hear the entire story because not only is it great food, but there are good deeds behind it as well. And we'll give you all of the information coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know, there are a few business owners in this town who are defined by the work that they do, and their signature travels with them wherever they go. I remember many, many years ago, Mac Voisin of M&M Meats would carry around M&M Meat gift cards, and every time you talk to Mac, he'd have a gift card for you. Everybody gets an M&M Meats gift card. Well, Jay Taylor, who's the owner of Morty's Pub in Waterloo, yes, the legendary Morty's Pub, everywhere he goes, wings are with him. Like, is that part of the deal that you made with the business gods, Jay? Like, everywhere you go, there have to be wings.
It's not a bad thing. You know, when Soupy and I show up to places, we definitely like to bring our wings. It opens a lot of doors for us, Mike, where they might not be open before.
That's a fair point. I can understand why they are delicious. Thank you. It was not necessary, but we certainly appreciate the little treats for the newsroom today.
It's our pleasure.
It's what they do at Morty's. Best wings in town, but you know that already. Along with Jay, we've got Paul Newsis with us, who's the former owner at the original, the one, the only, Sonny's Drive-In in Waterloo. Great to see you, Paul. Good morning,
Mike.
Great to see you here.
Yeah. Nice to see you.
We're here to talk about what has become an annual tradition, Jay, the Morty's Good Friday Fish Fry. Can you share with us the background of how this came to be?
Paul and I met a few years ago, and Paul had sold the business or sold the building, and was actually kind of bored, if I might say. Like he which I understand. It's, we go in this industry where we're going nonstop all the time, and all of a sudden, he sells the building and leaves the business, and a year later he's going, what is happening? I'm bored out of my tree, and we met, we chatted about some other stuff, some commonalities we shared. And we came up with this idea, why don't we just continue this tradition at Morty's? And we worked together with our staff and your guidance to make the fish and chips exactly how you made it before. With Bob,
yep.
And we just hit it from there. And then we're inspired by you, Mike, where all the charitable work you do in town. Can we make it a charitable element to this event as well, which we have? I'm proud to say, that we've part of a big thing for Paul and I is to raise money for your charity and other charities in the community. That part of it means a lot to us, and seeing people's face, being so excited to see Paul, to see Bob, to see the fish and chips, how they were, true to their recipe, it's made us very proud. And again, we couldn't do that without our great staff, people like Chef Mark and Shaz and, and Mark and our great staff. We have Christy up front who takes the orders online and diligently makes sure every order's in the right place. Daffy and Derek running the food all day. It's a real team effort, and we're really happy to team with Paul, and we're grateful for Bob's guidance as well. So, Paul, what do you think?
I think it's great. Like Jay said, we bumped into each other where he was hosting something at the restaurant one time, and then he just threw that by me, and I jumped on it. Like he said, I was bored, had nothing better to do, just doing stuff around the house, doing the honey to-do lists, doing stuff like that. And when he came up with that idea, I jumped on it, and it was great to bring back that fish that the customers so enjoyed. And it's been a huge success. Now we're going on our third year, right? And it just, people are messaging me all the time. When are you guys taking orders? When can we get what time can we come pick it up? Which Jay and his team have taken care of all that stuff. I just make the fish. I just do the good part of it, right? They take care of all the logistics of everything else. I just take care of the fish. But yeah, it's been a good partnership. Let's just say that. Like, it's been great. I couldn't ask for a better team to have worked with, right? And we're so grateful that we have you on our side supporting us.
It's the other way around, pal. I'm grateful for the two of you.
We appreciate you. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. Paul, I had to chuckle earlier when Jay said, you were bored because, look, the industry that the both of you are in, and I mean, every time I go to Morty's, which is plenty often, I see Jay, I see Soupy, I see the team, Daffy and everybody else doing their great work. But it's kind of something that's in you. And so when Good Friday rolls around, you and Jay mentioned Bob, who we remember so well from working that fryer at the original Sonny's on Weber and University. I mean, it's almost must be muscle memory for you now. On Good Friday, you got to be making some fish.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, if I wasn't doing that on, let's say the first year I sold, it was weird. It was very weird. And then now it's like, I'm back home. And every time I step into Jay's, into Morty's, right, I feel like it's my place now. Like, I feel like our partnership has become where I'm not just the business partner. I feel like I'm family when I come into Morty's now. I always say to Jay, when I come through the front door, I'm here as a customer. When I come through the back door in the kitchen, I'm here as a worker, a partner in the business, not monetarily, but in spirit, right? And, Jay loves that, right? Because we're just looking after each other in that sense, right? So, yeah, it's been a great partnership so far.
What is the difference? Because we know Morty's is famous for its wings, has been forever. What is the difference in making the fish in that same kitchen?
Opposed to my old kitchen?
Or as opposed to what Jay is, I mean, I know you've got fish on the menu too, but what do you have to do differently, if anything?
Oh, so what we're doing we're actually doing quite a bit. So the way his kitchen's set up is perfect. So he's got fryers that are kind of off to the side that I can just do my own thing. So what we do is we use the same oil that we used at Sonny's, right? So all the same product. So it's got that original taste. And yeah, so pretty much that was it that I would do differently. And then, the hand chopped fries, all fresh cut. And that's a staple at Morty's. They do that on their own. And again, we hand dip the fish. This year we're going to prep about 700 pounds, So my record was about 1,000 pounds, right? But we're going to prep. We're getting there. You know what I mean? Every year we're creeping up slowly, right? So, right. But we want to make sure that we don't over make, right?
Sure.
But we don't want to overbake by too much, but we're good. We're getting up there. So it's great.
A big part of it for us, when Paul and I sat down, was how do we keep the original recipe and be true to that, and also try to improve service using technology that wasn't there 25 years ago, 58 years ago when you guys were starting.
Even 5 years ago.
Yeah. Our online platform is really something. Soupy and Alex did a bang-up job creating that. And it's really easy to navigate. You go to Mortys.com, you go to your left, you scroll down, you'll see online ordering, you'll see a fish and chip icon of Paul's old building, and you click on that and you order. And you pick your time. When the times have filled for what we can make in 15-minute increments, you can't order at that time anymore. A couple times have already been filled, but we've got it organized where we give ourselves a 15-minute window where you come in and we should have your stuff right away. Like the longest I think someone waited might have been 20 to 25 minutes, which is pretty good compared to the past. Paul, would you say?
Yes.
Those lineups, I remember them.
Yeah, we would range from 40 minutes to an hour and a half, as we never took online orders.
Of course.
And it was all waiting. And mind you, our kitchen was smaller. We only had a few fryers, but Jay has the capacity that we could push out so much. And I think the reason why we had a little bit of a lull last year is some of the fryers just, when you're cooking that much food, they break down during service, right? And you got to give them time to kind of recoup, right? So I think that's why we had a little bit of an issue. I think last year it was 2 fryers kind of went down, but we still had 6 more. Because we have 8 fryers altogether, so that's why we can push out the product as quickly as we. That's why there's no waits. Yeah.
And again, the great staff. I didn't mention Ty, Damon, Brad. Those guys, they all work really, really hard all the time. Especially Good Friday, we are pumping out so much product in such a tight timeline, and doing it where quality is paramount. And I can't tell you, I have no idea how Daffy does it. He packs every order that goes out, and he makes sure it's perfect. There was one mistake out of, I think, 800 orders to 1,000 orders. There was one mistake, and it was, I think he gave someone 2 pieces of fish versus 3 or something like that. It was like, it's incredible how lucky we are to have such wonderful, caring staff that are proud of what they do.
You've got it. Like, it's a well-oiled machine.
Yes.
What you have put together now for this annual Good Friday fish fry. We've enjoyed it every year, and my beloved already has the order in for this year. And it was so easy. You get it all lined up front of house, and you walk in that door, and it's ready to go with the time that you set.
Yeah. Mortys.com.
Mortys.com. And we still got room for some orders?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We do. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We're making extra this year because last year we pretty much sold out. I think we had a few pieces that we kept behind just in case there was sometimes stuff break during the process, so we kept some fish back just in case. And so we pretty much sold out. We're almost there. We're probably at 98% sold out last year. So that's why we made more this year and we realize now we can take on more. Yeah. Again, his staff's great, so they want the extra work.
Right.
Let's just put it that way. Yeah. So.
And other people in our business and our community, wonderful people to help us out. Sandeep from Domino's, who owns a number of Domino's in town, does a lot of stuff for this community. He lent us about 75 trays, which we can use to place the fish on. And he does that freely. He does it, happily, and makes it so easy for us. He's just a really good person and cares about other businesses in our community, which is really nice.
I think it was you that said for the first time I heard it, Jay, co-opetition. Is that right? Yeah, I think
co-opetition.
But you think about it, right? Like Paul was in a different restaurant, same industry, not far away geographically. You talk about Sandeep and his cooperation with you, even as a member of the competition, but you guys all really partner and get along.
Yeah, we do. And, we want everybody to succeed.
Yeah.
This industry is hard enough.
Yes, it is.
And the economy's tough enough. And, of course, we want you to order from Mortys.com, but we just want you to order too and support your local restaurants. But, we're very proud of the product we put out. And I'm proud to work with such a person of such high integrity as Paul and Bob. And it really warms our heart that we can do something we love, and then also raise a little bit of money for charity in the process too.
I wanted to talk a little more about that if we could, because yes, Farwell for Hire has benefited by many thousands of dollars over the year, thanks to the generosity of both of you gentlemen. But we know, Jay, that that's not all. Morty's is so involved. It's the stuff a cruiser every year, the Knights of Columbus you participate with. There is Lincoln Road, but there's a school food program. Is that what it is, or neighborhood food program?
Yes, we're not doing that this year, but for 20 years we did the Lincoln Heights breakfast program.
Yeah.
We've been talking to Food for Kids. We're very proud of the Knights of Columbus, Waterloo Knights of Columbus toy drive. Just to be part of that and watch those gentlemen work so hard to be able to work with a gentleman like Marty at the Waterloo Knights. Like, what a gem what a beauty that guy is.
He sure is.
He's 39 years old. You'd never believe it, and but he's been with the Knights for 60 years. But anyway,
why is that so important to you as a business person, though?
I think it's important because, well, firstly, we get a lot of satisfaction from that ourselves to see our hard work and our guests that come in and that support us and that we can support in hand other places and other charities. That makes us feel good, and to see those results, ultimately, that's the big payback. I also think it's smart if you're a young business person out there, and you want to come up with everybody talks about their social media strategies and business strategies. That could be a business strategy you could have. It doesn't mean that's the first and most important thing you're doing. You're not doing it for those reasons, but I always found, and my father taught me this too, is whatever you put in, you get back tenfold, so many times, and you get it back. Not always financially, but you definitely get it back, and it warms your heart, which makes you a better person, and it makes you just a better community business overall, which then has its benefits.
Absolutely, it does. And just a reminder to folks, we're having this conversation today because a week Friday is Good Friday, just in case you had lost track of your Lenten calendar, okay? A week this Friday, April the 3rd, is Good Friday. Now, Paul, we're going to be rolling. We have Game 4 versus Saginaw on the Thursday night. We'll roll back into the Memorial Auditorium about 2:30 on Good Friday morning. Should I just roll into Morty's? Will Bob be in the kitchen about that time to get ready?
Well, I will definitely be there time in the morning. So, yeah, if you're more than welcome to show up, we'll get it ready for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
We have a spoon for you. You can stir the gravy.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I got Bob coming in. He's going to help me with the gravy, and then he's going to help me with the fish as much as he can. He's a little bit older now, so, but he wish he could be doing it all.
Of course.
Yeah. If I was still open, he'd be there right by my side. Let's just put it that way. He's a tank.
He was running out. He was running out bags of food to the front last year.
Yeah.
And I was going, well, let me help. And he's like, he gently put his hand on my shoulder and went, I got this. Relax. And I thought, wow, what an inspiration.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love what you guys do, and thanks for supporting the community the way you do. I love this co-opetition between the one and only, the original Sonnies and Morty's in Waterloo. Morty's Good Friday Fish Fry. It's next Friday. Okay, get online, mortys.com. Get your order placed, and you too can have that. It's pickup only, takeout only. They've got a well-oiled machine. Place your order, mortys.com, for the annual Good Friday Fish Fry next Friday. Paul, Jay, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV. Please pardon me as I finish just my first bite of the dry Cajun Morty's chicken wing that's been sitting here in the studio with me throughout the entirety of that conversation with Jay Taylor. the co-owner at Morty's Pub in Waterloo, and Paul Newsis, the former owner of the one and only Sonny's Drive-In in Waterloo. It just goes to show how good the wings are, that they are as delicious now as when they were first brought in here by Jay about a half hour ago. Jay and Paul were here to remind us of the annual Morty's Good Friday fish fry. My beloved sends me an email. I'm drooling listening to this. I can't wait for Friday. We do have our order in, as we have had every year since these two excellent local restaurateurs teamed up on the annual Good Friday fish fry. So just go to mortys.com. It's really simple to place your order. It's all done by takeout, so you just select that time, and in you go. It is, as I talked about in that conversation with Jay and Paul, a well-oiled machine. You're in, it's waiting for you, you're out, and you enjoy your annual tradition of the Good Friday fish. We know how busy places get on Good Friday, and yes, 1 week from this Friday is Good Friday. Will that be a Game 5 between the Kitchener Rangers and Saginaw Spirit, or will the game we play the night before next Thursday be the end of the series, Game 4 in Saginaw? I wasn't joking when I said I'll be getting home about 2:30 Friday morning. Will the series be over? Will there be a Game 5 at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium that night? I don't know. Playoffs open this Friday, but next Friday is the annual Morty's Good Friday Fish Fry in collaboration with the one and only former owner of the Sonny's Drive-In restaurant in Waterloo. Mortys.com to place your order. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, providing they have licked their fingers clean and are ready to deliver the news instead of eating those wings that Jay brought in for us. And then we're going to talk about a new report that points directly at the amount of social assistance and the number of people who are experiencing homelessness. That's next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is called the Homelessness Income Cutoff, or HICO, H-I-C-O, the Homelessness Income Cutoff. And there was a follow-up to the original report in 2025, just recently, in fact, earlier this month, a further exploration of this homelessness income cutoff. The report out of the University of Calgary, prepared by Ron Kneebone and Margarita Wilkins. And one of those co-authors, Ron Kneebone, who is a professor emeritus of economics and a research fellow in the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary, joins us to talk about it. Ron, thank you for the time. Good morning.
It's my pleasure, Mike.
What is the homelessness income cutoff?
It is the minimum amount of income one needs in order to remain housed. And it recognizes that people at risk of homelessness are doing everything they can to remain housed. They're doing things like crowding, living in smaller places, moving to the less expensive accommodations, relying heavily on food banks and charities to try to get by. It's the minimum income you need to stay housed.
What does that figure look like? And if I may add a second part, is it consistent across Canadian communities?
It varies by community because the cost of renting varies by community, the cost of food varies by community, etc. I can tell you for Kitchener, for example, our calculations show that in 2023, if you were a single person, you needed a minimum of $15,800 to remain housed. If you didn't have that kind of income, you are very, very, very high risk of homelessness.
Now that we know this number, Ron, we're able to quantify this. What do we do with the number?
Well, the first thing you do is what we did, is to say, well, governments like to talk about strategies to end homelessness, one of the most effective ways of ending homelessness is to make sure people have enough income to stay home, which is a pretty obvious point. So what we did is we compared the HICO to social assistance incomes that governments provide. And what we find is that the amount of social assistance income governments provide is less than HICO. In other words, we're not providing enough income for people who are fighting like hell to hang on to their housing to enable them to hang on to their housing.
Would it be too blunt to say that we are legislating homelessness in some regard?
Well, we're certainly not making it easy for people. And again, I think I really want to emphasize that some people think that when someone goes on social assistance that they're just kind of lounging around and taking the easy way out. But really, what they're trying to do is to hang on to their housing. Because without housing, Mike, and I know you know this, without housing, you don't have a life. You don't have, your health deteriorates really quickly. If you have kids, their future is completely shot. You have no hope for the future. And that's why people struggle so hard to maintain their housing. If you have very low income, you're fighting like hell to hang on to your housing. And I think government should be stepping up and trying to help them out.
How does the HICO line, Ron, compare to our poverty line here in Canada?
It's well below the poverty line, and that's where we started with this. People need to understand what the poverty line measures. The poverty line is the amount of income that enables you to have a modest but decent standard of living. So if you have an income at the poverty line, it means you can afford to rent an average price apartment. You can maintain a healthy diet without relying on charities. You are independent. You don't have to rely on charities to live this modest lifestyle. But of course, if you're at risk of homelessness, that's not you. Your income is much below that. So with the HICO, it's about 60% of the poverty line.
Are we really making the argument here, Ron, for a universal basic income of some sort?
I would support that, and I have supported that, because and there's really two reasons for it. There's a minimum amount of income people need to remain housed, but what's also important is stability of income, because you might be hanging on to your housing. You're impoverished. You have very little income, but you're hanging on. But then what really kills you is an unexpected utility bill or an unexpected loss of a few hours of work. That is what tips you over the edge and causes you to lose your home. If we had a guaranteed annual income, it would provide that base that is untouchable, and it would allow you to hang on to your housing much better than otherwise.
When you prepared this initial report a little more than a year ago, before this further exploration earlier this month, was the gap as wide as it is today?
Well, the first paper, we were just trying it out, and we did it for 7 major cities. We got a good response from it. So agencies like Statistics Canada expressed some interest in it. And so that's why we decided to expand it and do the analysis for 50 cities. We are able to add a couple years to our results, which is also a good thing, so that we can see how the HICO is changing over time. And it won't surprise you to find that the HICO is edging upwards each year. In other words, the cost of avoiding homelessness gets a little bit more expensive every year, and that's a consequence of higher food prices and higher rents.
You mentioned that Statistics Canada has expressed an interest. What about policymakers? Are we making inroads with this, Ron, having the conversations that need to have at a legislative level?
Not yet, but that's what we're trying to do. The School of Public Policy, where I work, pushes its research in front of policymakers. We're very effective at that and trying to get their attention drawn to it. It's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight, But if you push in front of policymakers some careful research, unbiased research, and say, here are the facts, maybe we should respond to them, we're hopeful they'll react to it.
Do we know how, we know where we are, thanks to this work that you and your colleague have done on the homelessness income cutoff. Do we know how we got here?
Well, we got into this trouble, I think, and the homelessness is the result of the trouble we're in, by failing to recognize that, in my opinion, what's happened in Canada and other countries is that the reward from education has gone up a lot. And so there are people who do very, very well as a society. But the person who dropped out of high school and used to be able to expect to get a good manufacturing job paying a reasonable wage, those jobs are disappearing quickly. And so we're getting this split of people who are highly successful versus people who are not so successful. We need to recognize that's happened and start to support people at the lower end of the income distribution more than we are.
It is very interesting research. Really appreciate you making the time on the show to explain it to us, Ron. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Ron Kneebone joins the program, Professor Emeritus of Economics and a research fellow in the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary. It's called the HICO, the Homelessness Income Cutoff. And as I look at the most recent report, which now it had started with 7 major cities across Canada. Now 50 have been recognized in the report. In Guelph, by way of example, in 2015, the homelessness income cutoff for a single person was just under $14,000. Today, it's more than $16,500. For a family, 2 parents and 2 children, in Guelph, the homelessness income cutoff in 2015 was just over $31,400. Today, it's more than $36,500. That's in Guelph. It does not appear as though, Kitchener-Waterloo does not appear on this particular survey. Oh, there it is, Waterloo instead of Kitchener-Waterloo. So in the region of Waterloo, in 2015, the homelessness income cutoff for a single person, $13,625. In 2023, just under $16,000, so up about $2,400. And for a family in the region of Waterloo, the homelessness income cutoff in 2015 was just over $30,500, and in 2023, just under $35,800. So you're talking being up about $4,000 in that one. It is a simple number. It is a number, the homelessness income cutoff, that is below the poverty line. And it shows, and we've heard, I remember in particular, former MP Mike Morris talking about this when it came to disability support payments. And he said, we are legislating poverty because the level of support payments, be they provincial or federal, are not keeping people at a sustainable level of income by any stretch. And now we learn, again, it's just cold, hard data, that what is being provided by way of support payments from various levels of government is not keeping people housed. So if you wonder, and it gets to that age-old argument, and you heard Ron Kneebone make reference to it, there is this idea that anyone who is on some sort of support, government support payment or program, is just laying around collecting checks. That's typically not the case at all. For a small percentage, sure, but even if that's all they're doing, they're certainly not in any sort of stable housing. And this is what the report is telling us. It does start us down that path towards the conversation about a universal basic income of some sort. And that might be an entirely different kettle of fish, or maybe it's the next kettle over. Because I think when you're looking at something like this, We know the outcomes of being housed, how much better those outcomes are. Why wouldn't we endeavor then to keep people housed? We'll go to the phones. Mike is with us. Farwell's Force, member number 37. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Michael. I agree with your sentiment that everybody thinks they're just a bunch of lazy bums and they don't want to work. That's what people think. However, in the past 2 years, I have volunteered at the food bank. I have volunteered and with family members at St. Vincent de Paul, and I volunteered with the Knights of Columbus and stuff like that on their food drives and stuff. And what you get to see is, yes, there probably are some people who are abusing it. However, the vast majority are people truly in need, and they can be anywhere from people with addiction issues all the way up to they've been laid off or they've had surgery or something like that, and they don't have short-term disability or workman's comp, and the people require assistance. Right now, there's a lot of charities that are stopgapping the federal and provincial government's actions, because I can tell you right now in the wintertime, we see a greater need because the hydro bills are up, the food bills are up for food assistance and stuff like that. So just my message is they're not all lazy bums, Mike.
Mike, appreciate the call and the note about the various charities that are filling in these gaps. I have often described our charitable and nonprofit sector as Canada's dirty little secret. These are the folks on the ground doing the heavy lifting that government is quite content to let them do. And listen, I know I feel like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth here because I'm a small government guy acknowledging that there is work that the government probably should do that it's not doing because it's quite content to allow the charitable and nonprofit sector to do it. What I truly believe is that our government's priorities are out of whack. I think they are involved in too many different pursuits, shall we say, and not focused on the most important things, which are those supports for families and children as families grow, the healthcare/sick care system that is there. How about into seniors care and longer term care for our later years because we are living longer and longer? I think those should be core functions to ensure that everybody has some basic standard of living here in this country. And we're certainly not at that point. We're not even close, given the levels of homelessness we are seeing and the kinds of information we get in a report like this from the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary. We'll take a break, come back with more of your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Without housing, you don't have a life. Your health deteriorates really quickly. If you have kids, their future is completely shot. You have no hope for the future. And that's why people struggle so hard to maintain their housing. If you have very low income, you're fighting like hell to hang on to your housing. And I think government should be stepping up and trying to help them out.
That is Ron Kneebone, a professor emeritus of economics and a research fellow in the School of Public Policy, the University of Calgary. He talks about the homelessness income cutoff, something he and his colleague researched a couple of years ago and brought forward more communities, now up to 50 communities across the country, looking at what that homelessness income cutoff is and putting it in front of policymakers to say, hey, we know the impacts of not having housing. Here are the inadequate levels of support payments being made that are forcing people into homelessness. Let's go back to the phones, hear more from you. Lisa is with us. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. What you said about the current government's policies being a little out of whack, I agree with. You know, I think our current government has taken over where our last government was, and basically they want to look like they're playing with the big boys. So we pledge money all over the world, and I don't think that we shouldn't. I'm not saying we shouldn't help out where we can, but instead of pledging millions and billions in aid to other countries, maybe they should keep $1 million or $1 billion back here and put it towards some of the problems here. There used to be a saying that said charity begins in the home, and as much as I sympathize with all the other situations in the world, when you hear about seniors who worked their whole lives and now can't afford to stay in their home because they don't have enough income, that just makes absolutely no sense to me. It just boggles my mind that could happen in a country like Canada. And I think people need to wake up and talk to their politicians about what's going on here and try to make that better.
Lisa, appreciate the call. I could not agree more. We saw this train coming. Again, it's data. We knew that we had an aging population. We knew that we were starting to live longer lives. How is it that we can have people who work their entire lives and outlive their money in this country? Again, and is it foreign aid? I think we could find lots of things we think that the money could be spent differently on. Sue, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm going to throw a little bit of a different scenario in. I'm in an area where there are people that have lived on the street and then they come in to be happy to have a roof over their heads. But there's a kind of an in-between part that they're not learning about how this particular charitable organization might be struggling, that they should also try to participate and be introduced to keep the electricity bills down. There's different time frames for that, and it's just like watering. You know how there was different times for watering. Just being introduced to different things and learning how to cope in an environment in a kitchen. Like you don't put a big fat frying pan hot on a countertop. They move into these nice new places, and then it's all ruined again because of their naivety of not realizing how they can live in an environment.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, Sue, and I got to get to the news update, but I think that's well down the road of solving the problem that we're trying to solve, because you're talking about folks who are just desperate for that roof over their heads, and then they get it, and that's the first step. Getting those household budgeting skills, conservation efforts, etc., I think come well down the road in this conversation. Our next conversation about the state of our world, from Iran and the Ukraine to Greenland. We'll touch it all coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is a lot going on in the world today, isn't there? And maybe we are feeling the impacts here at home. Lisa, in our last segment, alluded to the billions we spend on foreign aid that could perhaps be put to use here on domestic soil. We're feeling pain at the gas pumps because of what's going on in Iran right now after the U.S. invasion there. And then, of course, there is Canada's own plans for the Arctic and what this means to our sovereignty overall. It's at times like this we turn to our friend Andrew Basso, who is a professor of political science at Wilfrid Laurier University and a fellow at the Balsley School of International Affairs. Andrew, always good to talk to you. Good morning.
Mike, good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Well, thanks for helping us make sense of this crazy, crazy world that we are living in today. I want to start, if we can, with Iran and the U.S. invasion of, because you've described this as a bit of a war of choice, and I don't think many would disagree with that. Obviously, it was a deliberate choice by U.S. President Donald Trump. Are we shifting towards perhaps more unilateralism in the world?
Yeah, there's a chance here. I mean, the war of choice is a war that you just don't have to launch. But the way I've been teaching this to my students lately, and rightly or wrongly, is what's happening in Iran right now is exactly what happens when you launch a war of choice with no clear political objective designed to be achieved by the use of force. You do not launch war just for the sake of warfare. Warfare is an extension of politics. And I'm really not sure what the end game is here. I sort of mean this with all sincerity. Trump, he must feel good in a way to take out dictator after dictator. It's a self-reinforcing thing. It makes him feel so good against they're so bad. But what the U.S. is doing, it lacks some defense. It lacks defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter, which is the self-defense clause. One of the key ways you can go to war legally is if you're attacked. Now, to be honest, there have been about 100, maybe 200 attacks on the U.S. and allied personnel over the past 12 months by the Iranian regime and its proxies. But this is sort of a question of proportionality. This is about getting punched 170 times. Does that mean you can go in and obliterate the regime? There are plenty of instances of attacks being not followed by a dramatic response. It's sort of a thin veil of a justification. There's another problem that Trump is facing domestically, that it's about an authorization for the use of military force. I think I've talked about these before, but the U.S. president can deploy forces anywhere for 60 days, and then after that, they must seek congressional approval for their use of force. We're now on day 25. I'm unsure if he can achieve whatever opaque political objective he has in the next 35 days. And all of this is starting to reek a little bit like 2003. There are those of us who will remember the Bush regime's justifications for going to war with Iraq. That is, going in and preemptively striking the regime before they strike you. Now, there's something that happened in the last week that adds a little bit of flavor to this, that the Iranians, in response to the U.S. and Israeli strikes, they launched a ballistic missile against the U.S. base in Diego Garcia in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Previously, Iran, it's limited its ballistic missiles to about 2,000 kilometers, but that base is about 4,000 kilometers away. That means that London, UK, is now in play for Iranian missiles. This is a weird situation. We find ourselves that this could become a conflict spiral. The U.S., while it's been denigrating its European allies, now it's requesting access and or requesting help from its allies to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and maybe get help with toppling the regime, whatever that might look like. And the question that I have in my mind is if Iranian missiles are now ranging European cities, are European countries going to feel obliged to get involved in a war that they don't want? What happens if the U.S. goes for broke under the justification of self-defense? Will it trigger Article 5 of NATO's collective defense for the second time ever? And please note, it was the U.S. that also triggered Article 5 for the first time ever after 9/11. So unilateralism for sure, but I'm not sure the U.S. can go it alone necessarily.
I wonder, okay, so the U.S. going it alone, this makes me think a little bit, Andrew, about what Putin's intentions were in Ukraine and probably going into that war with the sense that Russia would steamroll and it would be over in a matter of, days, if not weeks, whatever. And Ukraine has obviously shown great resilience and taught us a thing or two about modern warfare. Did the U.S. and Israel in some ways get themselves into a bit of a pickle here?
Yep, I think they are in a quagmire. And again, it sort of comes back to what do you want politically this to look like after the war? And if you don't have a clear war aim, what you're fighting for. The Ukrainians, it boggles the mind that after Trump had that meeting with Zelensky in the Oval Office where he berated Zelensky for not wearing the right clothing and telling him that he didn't have any cards, Zelensky, he went back home, and then later in the summer 2025, he offered up Ukrainian assistance to intercept Iranian drones, and the U.S., from the telling of it, essentially laughed the Ukrainians out of the room. The Ukrainians are now being asked to provide anti-drone technology for the U.S. in Iran or against Iran because the Iranians are using $50,000 drones, or Shahed drones. The U.S., to intercept them, is using a $4.2 million Patriot missile. That is an economy of scale that is totally unsustainable. So the U.S. is using, and it's U.S. and Israel are using these incredibly expensive weapons, but they are going to burn through a lot of cash in this, and I'm not sure how or what the war plan is here.
How does this all end, Andrew? Do we end up with $2 at the gas pump and forevermore be paying that price?
Well, there's an interesting stat that in 1973, for those of you of that vintage, I am sadly not. I would have been there for good rock music, however. But for those of you of that vintage, for 1973, you'll remember the oil embargo from back then. The embargoed oil back then was about 7% of global supply, and that's still an oil crisis that we talk about today. Well, the Strait of Hormuz, that's the geographic choke point through which 20% of the world's oil is exported, in addition to natural gas and other products. I think Trump is trapped. He can either do one of two things. Number one, you either double down. And if you double down, you launch a ground invasion of Iran. There are a few different scenarios, but I think they largely boil down to this. You deploy forces on the Iranian side of the Strait of Hormuz to open up shipping lanes. But if you do this, be prepared to bring anti-drone technology that the U.S. doesn't possess with lots of expensive anti-aircraft weaponry, which the U.S. is burning through at alarming rates. That's option one. Option two at the double down is you muster together a coalition of seemingly unwilling states to march on Tehran. This is a country of 90 million people, and they've waited 50 years for this kind of war to happen. Do we really think that they haven't planned for every conceivable asymmetric war that could be fought, especially given U.S. problems with asymmetric wars in recent years? So there's that, and the 90 million people, I mean, it's one thing. They can really hate their regime. And that's, I think a lot of people do in Iran, but it's another thing if another country comes in and takes out your regime for you, then you as a country are being attacked. That makes sense. Then it's the same thing as a rally around the flag phenomenon. So you might actually drive away some of the reformers if you go in on a ground invasion. That's option one, so doubling down. Option two is declaring victory. If Trump does this, and I think there's a chance he does, Trump will have accomplished nothing positive, contributed heavily to insecurity in the Middle East, and he has made the global economy more expensive for everyone. If he declares victory when nothing has been achieved, the Strait of Hormuz is still contested, Iranian proxies are still operational, and the nuclear program that he so desperately wants to shut down is now dispersed, it's hardened, and it is probably accelerated. I could see that if he just does this, I don't see a path that the Iranians wouldn't want a nuclear weapon, because nuclear weapons, they are not necessarily offensive weapons. They are defensive weapons, if you go into nuclear game theory. Trump's war, it's an extraction of wealth from the American taxpayer. It's an extraction of wealth from everyone who relies on oil-based products to make their daily lives run. So that's everyone. A declaration of victory, it's essentially a humiliation for Trump and for the hardliners in Israel. They can't afford this politically, but it might be their only way out now.
We made reference to Ukraine, Andrew, and I can't help but think about that conflict now into a fourth year when it seems like almost a sideshow, given what's currently going on in the Middle East. What do these overlapping wars mean for the international system and the everyday person?
For sure. I mean, number one, it has to do with the Strait of Hormuz, and everybody is talking about this darn waterway right now, but it matters so much. The Russians, they are providing active intelligence on U.S. ships in the region as well as other tankers. And the Russians and the Iranians, they're collaborating to essentially close that strait down. That drives up oil prices, which drives up oil revenue for the Russians, which sustains the Russian war machine further. Russia is also dealing with maybe not a collapse, but the start of a chipping away of the shadow tanker fleet that they've been using to export their embargoed oil to other countries, especially India and China and elsewhere. Right now, as we're talking, there's at least one, if not two, oil tankers heading towards Cuba from Russia as part of the shadow fleet, and we're now playing a game of chicken. And is the U.S. or another nation, are they going to go up and take over those two tankers that are Russian flagged, or are they going to allow them to go to Cuba, which is a heavily embargoed country by the United States? And caught in the middle of all of this is dear old Ukraine. And Russian forces, they've officially started their spring and summer offensive against Ukraine's fortress city belts in the east and the south. I think there's some very good chances that Russia takes a little bit of territory in the next few months. But I'd like you to consider this. One of the opening acts of this offensive, the Russians threw about 500 soldiers, as well as tanks and armored personnel carriers and motorcycles and horses, against Ukrainian positions in Liman on March 19. And of those 500 soldiers, the Russians suffered 405 casualties. That's about an 80% loss rate. That is a truly staggering and insane number for modern combat. And such a casualty rate, it's unsustainable, and it's going to degrade Russian abilities to wage large-scale assaults in the medium and long term. But Russia's got some things happening domestically because of Ukraine that we can probably talk about if you're interested.
I would very much like to do that, if you can hang on with me just a moment longer.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew Basso is a professor of political science at Wilfrid Laurier University and also a fellow in the Balsley School of International Affairs. He joins us to try to make sense of an increasingly conflicted and, in some cases, confusing world. We continue the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I'm keeping Andrew Basso with us a little longer this morning. He's a professor in the Department of Political Science at Wilfrid Laurier University, also a fellow in the Balsley School of International Affairs. So much going on internationally. Iran, Russia, Ukraine, the U.S. and its interests. I mean, I think maybe, Andrew, the U.S. and its interests mirror somewhat Putin's interest in Ukraine. Just when you think of the United States and the Arctic, Greenland specifically, and this world order that we've known since 1945, post-World War II, seems to be starting to fray at the edges.
Yes. More than fraying, it's starting to rip. One of the dramatic signs of an impending conflict, or the military planners are thinking that there could be real action taken here, is that they'll send extra blood supplies to their troops on the front lines. They'll increase blood supplies at hospitals for civilians and military personnel. In normal times, what Trump was threatening with Greenland would be a multi-week crisis, and especially what happened because of a story that broke a few days ago. The story came out that under the guise of normal NATO military drills and rotations, Denmark and France, they sent elite troops, engineers, and explosives to Greenland. And their sole purpose was to blow up runways and destroy useful infrastructure that U.S. forces could use should Trump have ordered them to invade. Now, this is a remarkable story, because it's not just the military personnel and the explosives, it's the blood bags, that they did distribute extra blood supplies in Greenland. So even if it seems far-fetched, in the minds of our NATO allies, they truly believe that we could have an intra-NATO war, and that the United States would back out on its obligations to be peaceful in its relations with NATO allies, and it would actually go out and try and seize Greenland. This is the exact same sort of logic of Vladimir Putin, of go out and get what you want. It's a stunning thing, and another multi-week crisis that another event that should have been a multi-week crisis was Trump literally saying to the Prime Minister of Japan, quote, who knows better about surprise than Japan? Why don't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? I mean, he actually made that quip in the Oval Office. The international order that we have come to know and rely on, it's not only getting challenged, it's getting holes poked in it deliberately by various democratic and anti-democratic forces internationally. And it's going to matter because it matters for the price of gas at the pump. It matters for the price of products that we rely on. And it just matters for the sake of morality as well.
It is something that I think even from a faraway place, so many of us are struggling to kind of wrap our heads around, just as we have a couple minutes left here. But how do we, in this part of North America, respond and react to this?
I'm reminded of what your previous caller said, and I actually get what they're saying. That I understand that what your previous caller was saying about us spending foreign aid here at home, and I get the sentiment because we have a lot of problems here. But all of this that's happening right now in the world, this chaos, very much organized chaos, it's happening because we didn't deal properly with threats that we were facing in 2022 and 2023. That when Russia was allowed to run amok with Ukraine, all that did was enable dictatorial regimes to get increasingly repressive at home, inflict hybrid warfare against its adversaries internationally. That's us. And it made a spaghetti bowl of overlapping and compounding conflicts that make it possible to get charged $2 a liter at the pump. So the big takeaway I have is even if international politics seems so far away and disconnected, and that international politics doesn't affect you, international politics cares very much about you as an individual, and they will affect you in dramatic ways if we don't engage in really meaningful, genuine ways.
Andrew, always appreciate the perspective you provide to us. Thanks very much for joining the show.
Anytime, Mike.
Andrew Basso is a professor of political science at Wilfrid Laurier University and a fellow at the Balsley School of International Affairs. There are a lot of affairs internationally currently, aren't there? Iran, Ukraine, the U.S. and its overtures to Greenland. It just goes on. Trying to make sense of it all and give us some perspective of our place in the world that has become an increasingly conflicted and complex place. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then our phone lines open up real wide so that you can make the call and start the conversation during our Talkback Hour. Maybe it's a reflection on something we discussed today, something we just discussed, and our place as we look at $2 per liter gas at the pumps, or anything else you'd like to bring to the conversation. Your open line opportunity. Talkback comes up next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Your daily Talkback Hour begins. Something that we talked about earlier. Maybe you didn't get to have your say. A lot of talk about the homelessness income cutoff, this amount that people do not receive when they are getting some kind of government support payment, thus essentially forcing them into homelessness. Are we legislating to some degree homelessness in that regard? We had a conversation about that. We talked about school board trustees, whether or not we still need them for the future, the Heritage Conservation District in the Galt area of Cambridge, and the increasing number of conflicts in our world today. Lots that we have already discussed that maybe you want to weigh in on, or something else entirely. Let's get started at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Frank is going to start us off on Talkback. Good afternoon, Frank.
Good afternoon, Mike. Yes, I happened to cross paths with somebody you've talked to a few times. Her name is Barbara Robinson.
Yep.
Affectionately known as, guess, the sewer lady from Norton Engineering.
That's right.
Anyways, I pulled back the archives today and listened to that interview that you had on February 11th. And wow, if there's not like a potential like long-term and immediate, hopefully like partial solution at least to the water crisis, here it is. So I want to add my voice to the many that were suggesting that perhaps she should be hired. I'll tell you, when I met her, she comes across as a genuine person. Come to find out, she's a multi-talented powerhouse, and man or woman, she's got. I think she has the chops to do that job, 100%. And if the region doesn't hire her, then I challenge that they might not get as many votes when it comes up for re-election. That's all I'm going to say today. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, Frank, thanks for saying what you wanted to say today. And we were hoping actually to have the sewer lady, Barbara Robinson, the president of Norton Engineering, on the show today, in fact. But she's under the weather and we weren't able to make it work. But we know her voice will be back. She's highly respected in engineering circles and at one time did do work for our regional government. That is no longer the case. But Frank obviously supports the points that she makes and suggests that the region would do well to hire someone of her abilities. Jersey Bill is next on Talkback. Good afternoon, Billy.
Well, I certainly have to put my 2 cents in after that interesting interview you just had.
I had a feeling you might.
Huh?
I had a feeling you might.
Yes. Well, and my feeling is, of course, when I first joined the Army, I went over to Europe as part of the NATO force there, and it surprises me how different the situation is now, where we have a president that's actively trying to. I think he's undermining the whole idea of that alliance. Back then, that alliance was so strong that it could even survive France formally moving out of it. But they were going to be committed if the Russians ever came across the border, because they still had troops in a couple of provinces or states of West Germany. So and we had back then, in terms of number of troops, we still had over 230,000, and there had been a kind of drawdown during the Vietnam War, but still 230,000 Americans, a total NATO force, which would have been about 1 million, which would have been there right from the moment that there would have been a war in Europe. Unfortunate, but of course that's the whole idea, was deterrence, and it's sort of sad to see how we're attempting, instead with an alliance, we're now trying to do something on our own, and they're sending small numbers of troops, and it's just not going to get the job done. And you don't win a war with just air power and sea power. It's been proven over and over again. And I just wish that whenever I hear an intelligent person like your guest talk, I wish that somehow his brain could be put in the brain of Donald Trump, and that might settle a lot of the problems in the world.
Billy, I appreciate the call. Our guest with the brain, Andrew Basso, professor of political science, Wilfrid Laurier University, and a fellow at the Balsley School of International Affairs. It occurs to me, and this struck me when we were talking earlier today with 2 school board trustees, one who had resigned his position and another who was continuing to fight the good fight, perhaps, but was choosing his words so very carefully, lest he be censured or censored by his fellow trustees. And I don't mean to speak ill. In fact, I thought these gentlemen came across very well. They were both male. One had resigned from the Avon-Maitland District School Board, the public board in Stratford. The other was still on the board. I'm not taking anything away from them. They came across very well. But just to Billy's point, could we implant that brain of Andrew Basso into Donald Trump? You see, there is no test. There's no IQ requirement for seeking office. And I think that came across or even, a resume that needs to be of a certain magnitude to achieve office. One of our guests, in talking about the school board issues, said that we're talking about, managing a budget of upwards of $1 billion. We're talking about doing the very important task of hiring the director of education for that entire school board. And what qualifications do we demand of the people who are elected to those roles? And then managing that, budget worth hundreds of millions of dollars and making the very important decision to hire that director of education. It's a big ask, what it is we're asking of trustees. And I don't know, what are those qualifications before we put them into those roles? Kyle is with us on Talkback. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. I'm surprised that you said in that interview before the Talkback that you thought the Ukraine war would be over sooner than it is, especially since it's the first biggest post-World War II event that's happened. Look what happened in the Balkans. That was before the Ukraine war. That was the biggest post-World War II war that's happened, and that lasted 10 years. You have other wars that have happened, 9/11. The United States was in Afghanistan for 20 years. And then the other thing I heard on the news today is that they say that diesel gas prices are going to drop, was it 10 cents or 20 cents by Wednesday or something like that. And I think customers and people need to realize that even if you hear a 10 or 20% or 10 or 20 cent drop in diesel, it still affects 20 to 30% of what you buy. And it doesn't matter whether it comes on an airplane or a train or a boat or a truck. It's still going to take at least a week or 2 weeks just to even see the reflection if even if businesses want to adjust their prices for that, because prices just because things were cheaper 10 years ago doesn't mean that they're going to be the same price they were 10 years ago due to inflation and all that stuff, right? So I think people need to realize that 10 or 20% or 10 or 20 cent drop in diesel prices is always going to not always reflect everything right away. It could take even up to a month for it to bring the prices a little bit back down. And people that say that it doesn't affect them because they don't drive or anything like that, just remember, you might not drive, you might take public transit or whatever, but you still have to go and buy the items, which comes on a type of a vehicle or whatever. So just remember that as well. So I just want to tell that, Mike. But yeah, it's going to take a little bit of adjustment, even if it goes down by 10 or 20 cents being in the industry that I am. So I just want to let you know. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate the call. The industry that Kyle is in is the transportation, logistics, courier industry. So out there on the road delivering those products. And of course, the more it costs him to get the product to its destination, the more that the receiver of that product is going to charge to make up for what it costs to get it delivered. And you see how that goes. So it's true. Even if you don't drive much or at all, the impact of high fuel prices is certainly being felt by you, just in different ways. We're off to a good start on Talkback today. What would you like to bring to the table? Our phone lines are open at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. I know that you know how this works, and this works by you sharing with us during the Talkback Hour your reflections on an issue that we discussed earlier in the day, or you want to share with us something that you think should be the issue of the day. Because if it's important to you, it's important to us. We are the most interactive radio program anywhere in this region. The daily Talkback Hour from noon until 1. Let's get back to the phones. Liam is with us. Good afternoon, Liam.
Good afternoon, Mike. Force member 224 here.
Farwell's Force represent. Thank you, sir.
Let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.
Anyway, just a reminder, everyone, if you're a Rangers fan or if you're a fan of an OHL team, to go to OHL.com and set up your bracket if you want to potentially win tickets in next season. I've already set up my bracket, and you have until March 31st to do it.
Who you
Also,
got, Liam? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm curious. Who you got at the end of your bracket, my friend?
Of course, I have my Kitchener Rangers, and the thing about it is it would be a big win for my Rogers studio if Guelph, Kitchener, and Brantford made it as far as possible, because that would mean there would be more talk from all of us, and then there would be more opportunities for me to potentially cover games and see all the excitement from different communities nearby. So that's what I have to say. I have Brantford and Kitchener in my finals and stuff.
Nice.
But I mean, you can catch OHL hockey on Flow Hockey and Rogers TV from the first round up until the conference finals. But the finals, I believe, will be on TSN. So just to let you know. Also, before I let you go, my other thing is I hope that the Rangers win it all for Harrison Yoshi, because I find he is such a brave guy, and there was a post that really put a tear in my eye the other day that was shared by his dad, and how his son has been an inspiration for him. And I really think the Rangers should use Harrison as motivation to make it far and stuff. And I don't know, there's just something about the encouragement and the fight some of the people have when they conquer cancer. I mean, I read a book recently, and Daryl Sizzler was talking about how Terry Fox, great Canadian, I think one of the greatest Canadians of all time, is like one of his heroes and idols. And I think it was one of his greatest moments in life to meet the guy during his Marathon for Hope.
Liam, I appreciate the call. Great point about Harrison Yoshi, 9 years old. Local hockey player, the entire hockey community and the community more broadly has rallied around the Yoshi family. We had Dad Cody on the show. If you missed it, I would encourage you to go back and check it out on our online archives. You can get them at kitchener.citynews.ca. Just go to audio and then pull up the Mike Farwell show and find the appropriate day, which in this case for the Cody Yoshi interview would have been last Friday. Friday morning, the 20th, Cody was on the show. It is an incredible story of resilience. There was really no indication early on. And if it wasn't for, imagine this, if it wasn't for one of the students at the School of Optometry at the University of Waterloo who noticed a little something in behind one of Harrison's eyes, that led to the ultimate diagnosis of the tumor that was putting pressure on those optical nerves. Just an incredible story. And then, of course, yes, to be the family that's going through this. Harrison himself, as far as his dad Cody shared with us, is taking it all in stride and showing remarkable resilience. And the entire family is learning from this 9-year-old boy. The entire community, I think, is learning from this 9-year-old boy. There is a GoFundMe campaign that has raised more than $300,000 to help out the family as they endure, I think it's fair to say, something that nobody should have to or would want to endure. But if you go back to last Friday's show, March the 20th, Cody was on with us at 9:30. You can find it again online, kitchener.citynews.ca, or wherever you get the Mike Farwell Show podcast. You can just go back to the March 20th show and hear more about that. Since Liam did bring up the Ontario Hockey League, I just want to go back to something I shared during the Farwell Show 5 at the beginning of the show today, because if you're a follower of the league, and many around here are because we live in a junior hockey community, you heard Liam mention that Rogers TV, Grand River as we call it now, based in Kitchener, is responsible for the entire area, including Stratford, no OHL team there, but Guelph and Brantford as well. So 3 OHL teams are under the purview of our local, based out of Kitchener, what's called Rogers TV Grand River. And so it's because of that, by the way, because there is so much hockey to be covered, that this show is only on the radio until the OHL playoffs have completed. So a couple of months will be an audio only, which is just fine for this face, let me tell you. But if you've been wondering, and I feel like I'm talking into the wind anyway, because if you usually watch on TV, you're probably not listening. I hope you found us on the radio. And if you like to have the visual to go with it, it will be back a couple months' time after the OHL playoffs, just because there are so many games to cover and the way the community cable licenses work. I can't get into all the details because I don't understand them all, but so many hours of such programming and whatnot. So this show, and it's 4 hours every day, get removed while we cover 3 different OHL teams from this local market. Because we are an OHL market, the commissioner of the Ontario Hockey League was with council in Chatham, Kent last evening to talk about expansion and a potential OHL expansion opportunity in the city of Chatham. This has been discussed before. It sounds like it's getting pretty serious. And I just wanted to let you in on a little bit of that. This is the mayor of Chatham, Kent, Darren Caniff, talking about the opportunity before his council.
This represents a very exciting opportunity for Chatham, Kent. The potential to bring OHL hockey to our community is something that will have meaningful impacts, not just in terms of sport and entertainment, but also for local economic activity, community pride, and regional profile.
Ultimately, we'd like to add a few teams to our league. These are projects that are really managed in years, not months. So as we think about this, 3 to 5 to 8 years is kind of the time frame that some of these could take. If you look at the time you start, let's say today, and thinking about an arena to where a shovel goes into the ground to where the doors open, is multiple years to get to that final spot.
That is OHL Commissioner Brian Crawford in his presentation to council in Chatham, Kent last night. So you heard the mayor say this is a great opportunity for us. And then you heard the commissioner say, ultimately, we would like to add a few teams to our Ontario Hockey League. Last expansion goes back more than 20 years now in the OHL. I think Barrie was the last team in 98-ish, 96, in and around there. Anyway, last expansion has been some decades. The OHL believes it is in as good a spot as it has ever been, and it's actively seeking new markets, one of which could be Chatham, another of which could be Vaughan. The big piece that needs to be taken care of is an arena. The league, I think, has plenty of interest from an ownership side of things, but the community where the team will ultimately be located will need to have an OHL-ready arena, much like is being built in Brantford, much like is being built right now in Sudbury. Ottawa has broken ground on a new arena, etc. But if you have the arena, the OHL might just be looking to relocate a team or add a team to the league in a city near you. That's just some news out of Chatham, Kent, because Liam got me thinking about the OHL. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center. Tom and Grant, hang on with me. Your calls are next, and there's a line open for you on Talkback. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The Daily Talkback Hour is your chance to have your say. And always remember, if you try one of the lines and you can't get through, pro tip for you, okay? Veterans of Talkback will tell you, you can just try one of the other lines. You might be able to sneak in that way. We've got 6 available, a couple for each number, 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Sometimes they all get full, but every once in a while, you try one number, it doesn't work, try one of the other ones, and the magic happens. Let's get right back to the phones. It's busy on Talkback today. Hello, Tom.
How you doing, Mike? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, not bad. Just thinking about something that I didn't really realize this, but I did. Our MPPs get 33 weeks not in the house.
Well, not always, but certainly of late with Doug Ford's been keeping a very interesting calendar, yes.
Yes, and they only sat for 51 days last year.
Yep.
So what exactly is getting passed at the House then? And for Merritt Stiles, I'd much rather her come out and maybe help suggest, ask Doug Ford how he can help the Ontario taxpayers by maybe something to do with with gas prices, maybe lock them in at a certain price. They can't exceed that. If they drop, that's great. And it's only a temporary measure. But this back and forth fighting about cell phones and that, and maybe Doug shouldn't let people or give his personal number out to people, because that just causes more issues than that. But couldn't we sort of take a page out of this 9-year-old's playbook here and sort of look at things a little differently than that? Because we really don't seem to get a lot achieved at Queen's Park at times, and even at the House of Commons in Ottawa.
All right, Tom, I appreciate the call and the thought. Our legislatures, both provincial and federal, are set up to be confrontational, I think. And we have evolved or devolved, your choice, into consumers of information that want snappy sound bites, right? So I think we are the authors of our own misfortune in this regard. I don't disagree, though, with the sentiment generally around the number of sitting days. Look, Doug Ford has as strong a mandate, as strong a majority as we have seen in quite some time here in the province of Ontario. So he kind of gets to do whatever the HE double hockey sticks he wants, and he's flexing that muscle. Of that, there is no question. I think we could use a little bit more in the way of robust competition or opposition in Ontario. I have nothing against Marit Stiles and the job she does as the leader of Ontario's NDP, but I think we have seen over these last many decades that Ontario's NDP will never be anything more, certainly not in my lifetime, than the opposition here in Ontario. As for the cell phone thing and focusing on that, I'm going to go back to what I said yesterday just quickly. And if you call the premier of the province, if you call a government leader, how much of an expectation of privacy should you have in making that call? And again, I will ask, what kind of information is being shared on those phone calls that is so private that it must be protected by legislation, not allowing us the freedom to that information? Because it is ours. We are the taxpayer. We are the people that have elected these governments. I can't imagine. You calling the premier with your marital problems? Come on with your coming on. Grant, you're next on Talkback. Good afternoon. Grant. Okay, Grant's not there, but I'm sure Pat is. So let's go to Pat next. Good afternoon, Pat.
Good afternoon. I'm calling because, I think that the chaos at the Waterloo Regional District School Board is really the best argument that we've seen for dismantling the trustee system entirely. I think it's become clear that this isn't really about education anymore. It's about, I think, ego. It's about ideology. If we look at the numbers, I think parents are worried about literacy and math scores, and our local boards are just burning money. We saw a $300,000 bill for the public school board, and the Catholic boards couldn't agree on a calendar. We have constant legal dramas, and trustees are supposed to be our local voice. And if they can't even coordinate a PA day to save us $300,000, why are we trusting them with our children's future? I think it's time for the province to step in, appoint professional auditors and experts, and really get politics and ideology out of our schools.
Pat, I appreciate the call. I'm glad you brought it up. It is an election year. This is March, and it's the 24th. We are voting on October the 26th, so almost exactly 7 months from today. I want these issues to remain in the forefront of our minds. I could not possibly agree more with Pat than I do on this particular issue. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Well, I don't know if I need to because Pat just did. But I think that the antics that we have seen from both of our school boards, frankly, here in the region are the exact example of why some folks are saying we need to get rid of boards of trustees. Because what should they be about? Student achievement? Student success? The student experience? What are they about? Goodness knows. Infighting, more than anything. And thank you for reminding me of the $300,000 bill because the boards are too stubborn to compromise on professional development days. No, we can't. How could we possibly align a calendar? What do you expect us to do? But you're asking too much. Align a calendar? How dare you ask us to do that? We'll just piss away $300,000. No problem. Robbie English, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, sir. How the devil are you?
The devil is inside of me, my friend. The devil is inside of me.
Oh, good. I didn't think I had anything else to talk about the hockey, but I just realized I do, but I'll leave it till the very end because it's not as important.
Okay.
So what happened in the past and what's happening on Friday, it's very, very exciting. That was a good game at the weekend.
In Owen Sound?
Yeah, man.
Oh, my gosh. That was a wild game in Owen Sound.
It was an absolute beast, and I got to be totally honest with you, exactly what I was talking with you guys on Friday night. Depth. When our young guys can go out and do that, play like that, Forrest and his buddies who'd never played in the OHL before, that was it was inspirational and very exciting for the future. We got some overages leaving us this season, and there's some spaces to fill, and I think there's lots of guys that have got the chop between the bit or the bit between the teeth, whatever they call it in horse world, and they're ready to go. I think we've got some sunny days in Kitchener coming up as far as hockey's concerned.
I hope you're right. I feel similarly. It was a very good showing by some very young players on Saturday.
Yeah, most enjoyable. And the guys that didn't play as well, chorters. I got a buddy that works at Owen Sound, and he always takes pleasure in sending me photographs of all the guys. So Jack and all them guys were up there as well. So good turnout all around. My only thing, not hockey, and I just realized, and it started to really bug me, and I know it's been a conversation on your show about we're going to have to get used to the new ways we're doing recycling and garbage, et cetera. I'm out in St. Agatha, so we're Wilmot. I got to say, I'm just putting this out there if anybody from the council's listening, but the 2 weeks, every 2 weeks for the garbage and every week for the recycling made a lot more sense. We got 3 adults in our house, and I forgot the recycling last week, so now it's every 2 weeks. I've literally got plastic bags full of recycling to go out because it works out at once a month if you miss a week. So I'm just putting that out there because we do a lot more recycling than we do garbage, and then they give us bigger garbage bins and take away less garbage. So I'll plant that seed and leave it with you, buddy. Talk Friday.
Thanks, Robbie. Good to hear from you. Talk Friday because Robbie is one of our regulars on Rangers Talk, which is, of course, something you get on your home of Kitchener Rangers hockey, right? We start with Harris Law pregame show coverage. We bring you all of the action, and then after every home game, we stay for an hour or so, take your calls during Rangers Talk. To Robbie's non-hockey point, I'm just going to add my voice to this, and I will add my voice by recognizing that change is difficult. And I think it does become more difficult the older that we get. So I know that probably more than 50% of this is just because of my resistance or my resistance to or my dislike of change. But I hate the new system. I hate it. I'm sorry. I know my friend Neil always says, don't say that word. Don't say hate. I really, really don't like this new system. I don't like it. Every time I look at the bins in my driveway or the bigger recycling bins in the basement, and less service for the same money. And we're going to have our taxes increased again next year, so it's less service for more money. And I can't, no, just no. Rosie and I will go for our walk again this afternoon, and we'll see the busted cart just sitting there on the curb because the wheels fell off, and we'll see all of the other challenges that people are having with storage or just not caring about where the carts are or what they look like. And I do not like one bit the new waste collection system here in the region. Not one bit do I like it. Grant, you're next on Talkback.
Yeah, so why did that fellow from the school board step down?
He didn't like the vibe. He thought it was too stifling to be on the school board. He couldn't voice his opinion.
Oh.
Or he could, but he just paid too steep a price for it, he thought. He didn't get anywhere. He was getting frustrated.
Okay, well, maybe it's because, what school board was it?
Avon Maitland in Stratford.
And did they, in the past, have they spent money recklessly, like that one school board where they purchased a painting from?
Grant, did you listen to the interview or you just want me to replay it for you?
No, I don't. I listen to my Christian program.
Okay, well, you missed it then. You should go back on the podcast and listen. No, they didn't fritter away a bunch of money like some other school boards have.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Oh, Cody. You know what, Cody? You should be so focused on playing with kids. And my goodness. Get out of his system, cancer.
Okay. That's Harrison. Cody is Harrison's dad. But yes, Harrison Yoshi, we are pulling for the Yoshi family here in the region. And Grant tunes into our show after he listens to his Christian program. I'm just going to leave that with you and think about the contradiction in Grant's listening habits. For the first hour, he's saved. After that, there is no salvation from this show, Grant. I'm sorry. You're coming to hell with me in the same handbasket. It's the Farwell Show. It's your Talkback Hour on 570 News Radio. Every day from noon until 1, we open up the phone lines and allow you the chance to start the conversation, reflect on an issue that we talked about earlier today on the show, or bring us something brand new. It's entirely up to you. Barb is next on Talkback. Hello, Barb.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. I forgot my number, or I've misplaced it. I think I'm 233. But I wanted to make a comment, and I missed some of your show this morning. But I have a comment about... is it tomorrow the downtown is being determined what's going to go on?
How do you mean?
Well, you know, the park and the buildings and all that.
You mean
anyway,
with the former bus terminal?
What I wanted to say is if we've got that going, we need a gathering place. Here in KW, I really think that we need a place to gather, a place to get together, a place to bitch.
Well, that's this show, Barb. That's exactly what this show is.
No, but where can more people get together? Because we're all so isolated now because of COVID, et cetera. People used to do it on their front porch. They used to get together at restaurants. We're being sort of separated now. But if there was an issue that we wanted to get together at, where would we go in Kitchener? Like, for instance, they're gathering in Toronto today, you said, at Queen's Park. Where would we go in Kitchener if there was an issue that was serious and we wanted to get together with other people and find out what's going on? What, the City Hall, auditorium, a park? We used to go to the university. We need a gathering place, and we need a place with greenery. We need lots of greenery to counteract all the cement that's going in downtown. And just think of the opportunity now. They could put the buildings in, they could open green space, connect it up with Victoria Park, do a beautiful gathering place around the City Hall. And I think it's an opportunity, and then do something with the rest of King Street. As you mentioned, it's kind of tight, and I feel the same way. And I've been here I'm in my 80s and used to walk downtown. I wouldn't do that now. It's very crowded, and it looks like it did when I was a kid, generally speaking. I'm sorry, but it does. But we have an opportunity also with where the old City Hall was, and Conestoga has that building. We have a parking garage. Seniors are looking for places to go that are easy to access, maybe to park. Kids are looking for places to use their skateboards, and we have a garage with lovely ramps in it. We could have more people park downtown, because I won't come downtown because I don't know where to park, and it's very, very crowded. And so we've got 2 buildings there now that are empty. Like, I'd love to have an apartment in Conestoga College's lovely refurbished building. We could also do something in that area, and it would really help to be less crowded. I done.
Okay. Hey, you know what, Barb? I double-checked your math, and you are right. You are number 233.
Oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Barb, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Anyway, I'm sorry to go on and on, but I've been thinking about it. We've got a city now. We could do something with the downtown to make it more amenable to come there.
You go on this show anytime you want.
All right.
Okay, Barb.
Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. If I get to go on and on, you get to go on and on. And I often have to remind myself of that because I go on so long and then I'm like, oh, now I'm tight for time. And you get the short end of that stick, and that's not fair. There's a lot in there from Barb, isn't there? The issue coming up at Regional Council tomorrow, to which Barb refers, is, of course, the, I think, final stamp of or official declaration of the former bus terminal on Charles Street being declared surplus land. And what will become of it then? The region is looking at a phased approach. They've got a number of things based on some community consultation that they would like to see happen there. There are a number of suggestions as to what could or should happen there. As you've probably heard, I would love for us to do something big and grand and bold and exciting because do you know what I find boring? Condominiums. I'm sorry. I don't mean to whiz on those doing the buildings of the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom condos, but we need to have more than just housing in the community. I know we need housing, don't get me wrong, but we need more than just that. I feel as though we are too focused on the problems and not focused enough on the emotion, the aesthetic, the energy of a community. We need things to do as much as we need places to live. So I would like to see us kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. There's a whole lot in Barb's call that I can't possibly get into every bit of it. But some of those gathering places that she mentioned that we used to have, they're all still there. Our university campuses are there. There are public squares out front Kitchener City Hall, out front Cambridge City Hall, a nice public square in uptown Waterloo. So we could still gather there. I think one of the bigger problems is that we just don't. We just don't. And I find that really unfortunate because we are far more insular and isolated. We will stare at our phone screen or our computer screen or our television screen more than we will gather even and talk over the backyard fence, which of course exists now where fences didn't always exist. I could go on and on. I will say this much about the soon-to-be surplus lands of the former bus terminal in downtown Kitchener. The fact that it's in downtown Kitchener and these are regional lands, it's going to be a pain point because nobody's going to want to see Kitchener get all of the benefit for this, that, or the other thing. I will just remind you again that it's important, really important, that we look beyond just the problems we're facing. We do have problems. They are big, hairy problems. We can work on them and build an exciting and interesting place to live. My final word on that, I invite you back to the conversation tomorrow morning at 9, okay? I'll be here at 9 tomorrow morning. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.